put together on referrals in one document. That's why I called it the rec manual. It's like 4 pages long, but I strongly believe every rep should have this in the back of their manual and treat it just as well and learn it the same way you would learn your manual, because that stuff will make you a lot of money. So we're going to talk today about pre-demo prep, things you can do before you get into the appointment to make sure you're prepared to get a lot of recommendations. The second thing we're going to talk about is demo tips, things you can do during your appointment to help build up those leads, and then the art of actually asking for the leads. And there's going to be like a second part to this message. I'm not going to go through everything in that handout today, just for time's sake. We'll dive into more detail on some of that stuff at SC1 at the actual conference. So this is more going to be like an overview. So the pre-demo prep, first off is you got to know your stuff, right? You got to know your page 21 or 15 or 16, whatever page it is now, the recommendation approach. And that's something that, I've been in the business for 7 years now. My demo does not follow the manual word for word anymore, but there's 3 pages that really haven't changed. That's 8, 9, and 15, the close and the referrals. My referral approach is virtually the same as it was when I first started. Ms. Jones, there's one more really important part. Here's where you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco, but I can only show to people I've been personally recommended to, the same way Kathy recommended me to you. So what I need for you to do while I'm cleaning up and writing up your order, just jot down 200 to 300 people that might be nice enough to help me out. Just kidding, 20 to 30 is fine. I'm not necessarily looking for people you think would buy, just nice people like you to take a look. So here's a pen and paper, just jot down as many as you can. Thank you very much. And so I know that it's automatic, right? If it's not at that level of comfort and knowledge for you, that needs to be priority number 1. There's no reason that before every appointment for the rest of the day today and tomorrow, you can't just look over that one paragraph and have it down just the way I did by tomorrow afternoon. And there's no excuse for that. Like that, if there's any one paragraph that's going to make you more money in this business than anything else, it's that page, it's that little approach there. And the better you know it, when you're memorizing something, at first it sounds memorized and you stammer through it. It sounds recited. But the more you say it, then you kind of internalize it and it just kind of flows through. It doesn't sound memorized anymore, but you got to get through that first stage first. So you got to know your stuff. Pre-demo prep, know your page 16, Blue Book and Rec Book set up. So this is a big one for me. I've found that the more professional you can be, the more professional that you can be set up, and that's appearance, being on time, just showing up as your best self. It gives you a lot of confidence, and it gives the client a lot of confidence to want to refer you. Pictures and goals. I love having pictures in my book. Pictures are real. Sharing goals is important. Really getting customers to connect with you in a deep way is a really big deal. Testimonials that mention recommendations. So if you're getting testimonials from your customers, you have them in the book. One of the main things I ask my customers to put in their testimonial is, hey, would you recommend this to friends and family? Have you been recommended by friends and family? What's the story? How did you come to know Cutco? Because most people know it through recommendations. And I want that story in the testimonial so I can point it out to other customers down the line. So having testimonials that mention referrals, mention recommendations, just helps them create that social proof. And the last one is know who you're seeing. And this is one we're really going to dive into more at SC1. But I really do think of my clients as friends, as people, as they're not just customers to me. They become my friends over time. And it blows my mind how you can understand that sentiment, but then you don't treat your customers that way. If your friend referred you to somebody and you sold them something, you'd call your friend fired up and tell them about how awesome the appointment was, how grateful you were that your friend referred you to them. And yet we don't do that with customers, right? And so every time I leave in a customer's appointment, if I got a referral and it went really well, I'm going to text the customer that referred me to them, thanking them for making the connection, letting them know how much their friend loved the stuff, what they got, to build that culture of referrals in my business so that my customers not only give me that list up front, but they see what happened with that list. They see how happy their customers have been, their friends have been now that they've been introduced to Cutco. And it gives them the confidence to keep referring me business down the line. So those are a couple things before you get to the appointment that you can do to really kind of build up your lead base. And these are just some of the pictures I have. I love having pictures with my customers. I try to create that culture on my appointment of, my customers are my friends. They refer me to everybody. I'll see everybody in a friend's network. I'm not just their Cutco guy. I become the family Cutco guy or the office Cutco guy or whatever the network is that I got referred into. I become known as the kitchen guy for that group. And I end up having parties like I did over here, and just a lot of fun. So sharing stories and sharing that with your customers helps to create the social proof that you really need. Now, the next step I have here is be referable. When someone recommends you, you are now a representation of them. So be somebody that your customers would want to refer. Be somebody that your customers would be excited to refer. Be the person that you want to be referred to. If you want to get into $1 million homes, which, by the way, $1 million customers, not always your best customers, not necessarily our most target market. What I've found, and there's a lot of money here in Miami, and I have been in some unbelievable homes, and they're not the best customers, not all the time. Sometimes they are, but I actually find the sweet spot to be anywhere between ideally $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year in income. Tend to be my best customers. And I probably sell more to customers that make under $100,000 a year, around that $30,000 to $50,000 mark, than I do to customers that make $500,000 a year or more. Like, those are just not always the best clients. But with that said, if you want to move up in your social circle, if you're not excited about the referrals you're getting right now, you need to be the person that you want to be referred to. You need to be on time. You need to be clean cut. You need to be professional. You need to know your stuff. If you are stammering through your manual, if you don't know your rec approach, like, that doesn't show someone that's serious about what they're doing. And no one's going to recommend you to their best friend, their best prospect, if you're not carrying yourself in a way that's going to properly represent that customer. So being referable is a really, really big part of it as well. And these are all things that you can do before you get to the appointment to really maximize on the referrals at the end. So next up would be demo tips. Things you can do during the demo to really make an impact. Rapport and goals, connecting with your customers. Have a referral-based demo. This is something I focused on for a long time. I realized about midway through my first summer that this business is not about your average order. It's not about your closing percentage. It's not about your skill set with actually selling. The biggest needle mover in your business is your referrals. A customer, the rep that gets the most referrals, will typically sell the most by the end of the summer, even if they haven't had the best average order. It doesn't matter if you can close a Cutco kitchen with every customer if you have one appointment a week. You're going to get outshipped by the person that's doing 15 to 20 appointments in a week. And so I've really made a focus. I said, hey, I know I can sell. Like, Cutco's going to sell itself. I had a pretty solid average order. I want my whole demo to be geared and focused towards referrals, geared and focused towards building a recommendation base. And the sale, that's going to be a byproduct. The sale's going to happen if I go through the demo. And although there's plenty of room for improvement with average order, the first step is making sure you're getting a big list of highly qualified recommendations. And that should be your main goal, especially as you're building this summer, as you're building your business now. Referrals, recommendations, goal number one. I'll never forget the first homemaker that I sold. I was so excited and so pumped up that I left the house without referrals. I called my manager, Janice Ochoa, so excited to share I sold a homemaker. She's like, awesome, how many referrals did you get? I'm like, oh, I forgot about referrals. And she's like, you need to go back to that house and get recommendations. And I was like, I don't know how come, like, I'm going to go knock on the door, and I don't know. It was probably one of the more uncomfortable moments in my career. I did not feel comfortable going back to that customer's house to ask for recommendations. Not the ideal setup for asking for recommendations either. But you know what? She gave me 5 leads, and I sold 2 homemakers off of that list. So was making that trip back to the customer's house, being in that awkward position, so worth it. To double what I sold. So rapport, a couple tips on rapport. Connect with your customers. Really connect on a deep level with them. Find something that excites them. In my demo, I have tons of goals in my book. And I don't necessarily share all of my goals all the time. I have pictures here of clients, pictures with customers, things that I've achieved with the company, angel wings, things I'm working on. I also mention my scholarships because a lot of my customers did meet me as a student. So I talk about graduation. And I don't share all of this with every customer. This is my coaching, some of the contests that are going on. But I share the ones that they connect with the most. And that might be something school-oriented. That might be something, charity-oriented. Or maybe it's my business and my personal aspirations. But depending on that client, I'm going to find something to connect with them on. And I have a big list of goals that I share And although I might not share them all, I'm looking for which ones that customer might resonate with the most. Get personal, be open, be vulnerable. One of the best ways to get clients to open up to you is for you to open up to them, for you to feel comfortable being open, being real, and being vulnerable with them, sharing a story. And it's not about going in right away and then just sharing your deepest, darkest secrets, right? But if an opportunity presents itself for you to share like a real story about yourself, something genuine, take it. And what you'll find is, regardless of how open that customer was, after you share a story like that, because of just the social norms, they're going to want to share something similar. They're going to naturally lean towards opening up to you in a way that they wouldn't have if you hadn't showed that story. So always connecting with your customers. And then connect goals to CPO and leads. So all of these goals and everything is great to share with customers, but I find that sometimes new reps will share those goals. Customers feel good, they're excited about it, but then they don't relate that to the appointment. They don't relate that to how supporting you on these goals has to do with CPO and leads. And so one of the things I do just at the end of my referral, at the end of my goal section, is I'll tell my customers, hey, Mr. Jones, basically what like all these goals mean to you is anything that you see that you like today, I'm going to give you like a super killer, crazy, awesome, get it today special, and you're going to get an awesome deal. And if you like me and you like the product, the best way you can really support me with these goals is just to introduce me to a couple of your friends. And we can talk about that more at the end. And so that's really where I first plant that seed of them introducing me right after I've connected them to my goals. So they're excited, they're pumped, they're impressed, and now they're like, wow, how can I be a part of that? People get inspired by that. Everybody loves to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so really painting that picture for them, then bringing it back and letting them know because of all this, what it means for you, Ms. Jones, always bringing it back to the customer, is that anything you see that you like today, I'm going to give you a super crazy, killer, awesome SC1 Get It Now special. And if you like me and you like the product, at the end, I'm just going to ask you to introduce me to a couple of your friends that might be open to seeing me. And so that's something that I do to connect my goals back to the leads, back to the customers. This is straight off the rec manual. A couple of rapport tips here. Let's see if I can get this out of the way so I can read. Be a lead detective. Pay close attention to building rapport and talking and taking a mental note of anybody your customer might mention. If they start talking about their sister, you can ask qualifying questions. See if she's a potential lead. So a customer mentions something about her sister. My question might be, "Oh, that's awesome, Miss Jones. Is your sister older, younger sister?" Trying to qualify the age. See if she's a potential customer. Does she enjoy the kitchen? Does she like to cook? And your customers might even notice what you're doing, that you're kind of prospecting and lead generating, but it's cool because it keeps that idea of referrals fresh on their mind. People need to hear things multiple times before they do it, right? So throughout rapport, throughout my appointment, if they mention a neighbor, a family friend, anything like that, I'm making that mental note. I might even take the extra step to get a little bit more information about that person that I can use later on at the end to get some referrals. So always paying attention to what customers are saying during rapport, who they're talking about, so you can get referred to those people. Pictures around the house is another one that you can use to get some referrals as well. On the company page, this is something I'm sure you all know, but it's really important to cover, the DSA. Ms. Jones, we're also a member of the DSA, that's a Direct Selling Association. This means we can't do any cold calls, no door-to-door sales. The only way I can keep working towards my scholarship is through recommendations, the same way Kathy recommended me to you. And so this is just another part early on in the appointment where I mention leads. So if you notice, before I finish the company page, I mentioned referrals after my goal sharing. I've probably gone through through testimonials with customers talking about how they refer the product. I've shared at least one, if not 2 or 3 stories about customers I've been recommended to. And now I'm emphasizing it again with the company page. This is the only way I can keep working towards my goals. So by the time I get to the company page, I've already mentioned leads at least 4 times. And I'm really prepping the customers, planting the seeds so that at the end, I don't even have to ask. I just give them the paper, they know what to expect, and they can give me those leads. So mentioning it as many times as you can throughout your appointment, creating that social proof is huge, huge part of recommendations. Name dropping. Name dropping is, again, just going back to sharing stories of your customers and the people that have purchased from you in the past. Whenever I can, I'm bringing up stories about clients. And there's specific details on how to do that in the rec manual. Telling stories about these people is really big. One of the things I'll share a lot, I have stories for pretty much everything. People really connect with stories. And every story I have has two purposes. One, to promote the product. Two, to promote referrals. Like those are the two objectives I have when I share a story with a customer. So if I'm talking about introducing the sets, let's say, this, Ms. Jones, this is our complete set. This is the best set that we make. This is Kathy's set. This is the set that Susie got. I don't know if you know your friend Claudia. Claudia got this set. Actually, Claudia, her sister, and her cousin all have the complete set. And it was funny because Claudia bought it originally just because she loves to cook. And then she recommended me to her sister, who bought it just because Claudia bought it. You know, they're one of those, like, keep up with the Joneses. She can't have a better set than her sister. And then the third one, her cousin, you know, once two of them got it, like, she didn't want to have a smaller set than her family, so she got the big one as well. And so I'm sharing a story of who got the complete set, why they got it, and who they referred me to, and then what that person got. You know, the homemaker set, Ms. Jones, this is our starter set. This is the bare essentials to kind of get by in the kitchen. This is actually the set that Chris got. Chris got this set because, honestly, he just loved the fact that it was American made. Like, the guy never ever cooks. I went into his kitchen, he had like a layer of powder on the counter because he's just never in there. But he understood that this is like a once in a lifetime, this is a one-time buy, and he loved the fact that it was American made, so he got the basic set, and that kind of covered all of his needs. He then recommended me to a bunch of his Army friends, and they all loved that it was American made as well, so they got a ton of stuff from me too. So again, like sharing what the customer purchased, who they referred you to, and what that person they referred you to purchased. And there's a couple of examples of that in the handout as well. One of the things I think you'll notice in the business the longer you're here is the power of one customer. One customer can change your business. One referral list can change your business. And that's what it was for me. This is just to give you guys an idea. Like, I have a lot of leads. I get a lot of recommendations. And I did this for a talk last year. I wanted to see that tree, that chain, and how all those customers came from. And what I figured out, which I really didn't know until I actually went through it, is that everything came from my aunt. That was one person that really started my business. Before I saw my aunt, which it took me a couple weeks to see her, I really didn't have any of my referral chains catch on the way that this one did. This was a referral change that 7 years later, I just sold $2,000, or I sold $1,500 earlier this week to someone that I can trace back to this list. And it was, at the time, I think when I got this list, I was at maybe $5,000 in career sales, maybe a little bit more. It was a list of 30 people. And just to have a little idea, Minnie, my aunt, referred me to a couple of people here, and you can just kind of follow that chain down, and I couldn't trace it. It just couldn't fit anymore on there. But, I mean, this one list has probably created over $70,000 of my sales, maybe more. As a matter of fact, it has to be more because one little network within this list has bought over $50,000 from me. And the list just keeps growing over time. And it's just that power of one. For me, Minnie, even though she got me to those 4 people that you see on there, the main one, though, was Marile. Marile Lopez was on Minnie's list. I also got referred to her a second time by Yvonne. And originally, when I got referred to her by Minnie, I called her. I wasn't able to see her. She's like superpower attorney in Miami. She's the lady that nobody wants to upset. And I wasn't able to see her because she's just super busy. But I found I got referred to Yvonne. Yvonne's a good friend of hers from high school, very close relationship. I had Yvonne call her and schedule the appointment for me because I knew I had tried to reach Marile a couple times, wasn't able to go see her. Yvonne calls her, scheduled the appointment. She bought $900. Not only that, she gave me a list of 60 referrals. And those 60 referrals, I mean, I've never called a better list. The moment I mentioned Marile's name, it was like, oh, Marile, yeah, what do you want? Just come over. When? Tomorrow? Cool, let's do it. Because nobody wants to upset Marile. And she was that one customer for me that came from that one list that really made my summer that first summer. And you never know who that person's going to be. I'll tell you, Yvonne was not the person I thought would connect me with one of my best customers. But you treat every customer as though they have that potential because the truth is every customer does. Everybody has people above them in their social circles and below them in their social circles. Everybody has the ability to connect you with a great client. And you need to treat every customer that way. And you're always looking for that one money list that could change your business. So the art of asking when it comes down to actually referrals. Again, know your recommendation approach. This is straight from the rec manual. When you ask, this is kind of when you want to ask and how you want to ask. You ask right after you close the order. Don't clean up. Don't write up the order. Don't do anything else. The moment the customer agrees to whatever that number is, $200 a month for the homemaker, awesome, Ms. Jones, high five. There's one more really important part. Here's where you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco. I can only show to people I've been personally recommended to. That's when I pull out my rec binder. Now, this is an old one from when I was a student, and you can see tons of recommendations. These are my inactive recommendations right now. I have a whole other binder of the ones that I'm currently working with. But when I was a student, this is what I used. Put it up here. So, Ms. Jones, there's one more really important part. Here's where you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco, and I can only show to people I've been personally recommended to, the same way Kathy recommended me to you. So what I need for you to do while I'm cleaning up and writing up your order is just jot down a couple people that might be nice enough to help me out. And I'm not necessarily looking for customers that you think would buy. And I literally flip through my book like this while I'm doing my approach. I don't mention it necessarily, but it's just like leads after leads after leads to show that this is normal. This is something everybody does. This is like the part of the presentation. So what I need for you to do is just jot down a couple people you think might be nice enough to help me out. And I'm not looking for people you think are going to like buy the whole book. Although if you have any of those people, definitely recommend me to them. I'm just looking for nice people like you that might be willing to take a look and just sit down with me and help me out towards my goals. And I'll flip through like this all the way to the end to get a clean sheet. And I just start skipping them. Sorry, it's kind of a mess, Ms. Jones. I just have a ton of recommendations. Here's a couple pages. Just jot down as many as you can. And so this is, if you want to have something like this set up for sure. I have sponsors written on the people that have purchased that have referred me to over 10 people. And then I have double sponsors. This is a 5-time sponsor for 50 recommendations. And I'm pointing this out to them when I'm going through my recommendation approach. So having a book like this set up to show some proof, super, 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 super important. Give them 2 sheets of paper when you ask. That was one of the keys with Marile that I actually messed up. Marile was not the customer I connected with. She was real straight and to the point, gorgeous home. I walked in and she had a list of item numbers of the things she wanted to buy. How often does that happen? I mean, this lady was serious about her time. She wanted to make sure I was in and out of that house as fast as possible. And even though she had that list, she's like, I don't want to see the whole presentation. Like, this is the stuff that I need. She had already some Cutco in the kitchen, so she was familiar with the product, went online and picked out some stuff. And I just told her, I'm like, hey, awesome. And I can tell, that I would definitely want to respect your time. Can I have like 15, 20 minutes? Is that okay? And I promise I'll be out of here in 15, 20 minutes. Okay, great. She already knew Cutco. I didn't have to go through a whole appointment, but I sold her like an extra $500 in stuff just by walking her through the book and explaining some of the other stuff she didn't have on her list. And I made sure to save 10 minutes for recommendations. And so when it came to recommendations, I handed her 1 piece of paper, which was my mistake. And as she's getting to the bottom of the list, like, this was not the lady that I expected to give me 60 referrals. I grabbed the second sheet and I kind of slid it underneath, right? She gave me a look, but then she just kept writing. And she went to the second page. She starts getting to the bottom of the second page, and I'm like, all right, let's grab a third sheet. I slid it under. She's like, no, that's good. I'm like, all right, fair enough. I'll take the 60. That's fine. And she gave me 60 referrals. But handing them 2 sheets of paper just sets the expectation, right? For a lot of referrals and a lot of leads. Give them 2 sheets of paper. That's a big tip. Eliminate weak words. Could you maybe kind of sort of please help me out? You want to come from a place of confidence always. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. He's got the #1 selling book on Amazon right now, 12 Rules for Life. Strongly recommend it. It's a great read. Not a sales book at all, more about life, but one of his rules is stand up straight with your shoulders back. And it's all about being courageous, being vulnerable. When you stand up straight with your shoulders back, you're exposing the weakest part of you, right? But you have the confidence to do that because you're not afraid, because you're ready to kind of face the world. And there's something attractive about that kind of confidence. And you want to have the same kind of confidence when you approach leads. You want to have an expectation that everybody gives leads. And it's not weird, and it's totally normal. If you are putting out a strange energy, if you feel uncomfortable for referrals, how do you expect your customers to feel any different? It starts with you. Your customers will mirror your attitude. They'll mirror your energy. And so if you just set that expectation, you have confidence when you ask, they'll be confident in their response. If you're unsure and uncertain and like, uncomfortable with that process, then what goes through the customer's mind, I mean, I'm sure that some of you have had the experience where at some point during the presentation, a customer mentions, oh, my sister would love this stuff, or blank would think this is really cool, or my friend Susie loves to cook. But then at the end, you don't get that referral, even though the customer said earlier on in the appointment that this would probably be a good person for you. And I find a big part of that reason is that customer might have been willing to refer that customer or their friend. And at the end, when you go to ask, because of the weak words, because of the lack of confidence, doubt enters the customer's mind. It's like, what is he going to do with this paper? What's going to happen with this information? Is like he's just being a little weird about, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this, right? Versus when you approach it with confidence and expectation, you show social proof that others have done it. There's a lot of confidence that comes behind that, and your customers are more comfortable just giving you the referrals. So having that confidence starts with you, and you can fake it till you make it, fake it till you become it, but you got to be comfortable, confident, and eliminate those weak words from your approach. Thought jogging. There's a second handout that I gave you guys, which I don't have up on the screen here. Actually, I think I can screen share it. This is a document that I don't have it up. This is a document my mentee made, and it's just a bunch of thought joggers. This is a similar one that I have put together here of things that, the kind of things you want to ask your customers, the kind of leads that you want. Now, I don't use a thought jogging page anymore on my appointments, but it's something I encourage you guys to do, is really put some time into thinking about who do you want to be referred to. The one that was emailed out that your managers have is, if you'll notice, it has a lot of like art-based, music-based stuff, because my mentee Gavin is a professional musician and he loves the arts. Not only that, you know, people that are into classical music, especially in his territory in Fort Myers, Naples, Port Charlotte, I mean, these people typically have some money. And so it's a good circle of people to be in. I actually learned to do this from Donovan Taylor, who was a rep my first summer. We kind of came up in the business together, and he was in the medical field. So he had a brainstorming list like this that he made, that he would take with him on his appointments, and would ask for nurses, veterinarians, people in the medical field. That was a big part of what his list was, because that's what he was interested in. Plus nurses, amazing clients. They tend to have families. They tend to cook. They like to nurture and take care of others. Same with doctors. I actually find nurses are better than doctors. Doctors tend to, sure, they make a little bit more money, but they're busier. They don't cook as often. They're not necessarily quite as nurturing as nurses can be. And so nurses are a great circle. And I would encourage you to think about, what are the kind of customers you want to be in front of? You know, what career are you pursuing? Could you get referred to some people in those careers? And also, like, make sure that those people are good prospects, are in our market for the product. Because it doesn't do you much good to get referred to people that aren't necessarily in our market. So max married average age homeowners, ideally married, dual income, like that's our market, right? So you want to put together a brainstorming list of people you'd be excited to see that land in that market. It doesn't do you any good to get referred to a bunch of 15-year-olds. You know, it just doesn't help. So having some sort of a list like this, and it's not that you need the list on your appointments. Like I mentioned, I don't actually have this on my appointments. But I think going through the mental process of making the list yourself and just being aware of that and putting time into thinking about, all right, what kind of people am I going to be asking for? That is very valuable. So making sure you're brainstorming with your customers. The handback. 95% of the times, customers are not going to give you all the referrals the first time. And there's going to be, you know, multiple reasons for that. But the main one is, like, when you hand that sheet back to the customers, it really shows the customer how important this process is to you. If you spent the whole appointment building up referrals, you talk about how it's your bread and butter, it's your lifeline, it's how you continue to work towards all your goals. And then when a customer gives you any little objection, you cave. I mean, what does that say about how important those leads really are to you? And so having just the courage to ask a second time, even if they've given you a couple of leads, whether they've given you 2 leads or whether they've given you 10 leads, you know, I find you'll always get an additional 2 to 3 minimum leads by just sliding the paper back and asking, awesome, Miss Jones, who are a couple more people you might be introducing me to? Could we get to 10? Could we get to 15? If we get to 20, Miss Jones, I'm not above bribery. I'll hook you up with that free peeler you really wanted. And so just having fun with it and asking again. And that second ask, when you hand that paper back, sometimes you get that one or two people that they already thought about, right? But for whatever reason, they held back. Maybe it was that, let's be real, you guys are new. You might not have been the most polished on your appointment up front. So there might have been that one person that's a really good lead, but like I said, because you're new, because you hadn't built your skill set, maybe you haven't learned your manual, they didn't feel comfortable referring you to their best person. But you hand the paper back and you ask again, and it's like, wow, this kid, he's really trying hard. Let me go ahead and introduce him to this person. So those extra 2 to 3 leads that you get on the handback are so often, especially when you're new, like the 2 to 3 best leads you're going to get from that list. And they're the people that your customers were already thinking about. And if they were thinking about them, there was a reason, right? It was because they think they might be a good prospect, or they think they might be able to introduce you to the right person. Handing that paper back will get you those key leads. And so don't be afraid to push it back. And all that does is really show the customer how serious and committed you are to the process. Everybody loves free stuff. One of my favorite lines is, Miss Jones, I'm not above bribery. And I just make it fun, right? I make them laugh. I make them smile. I break that tension. If you get to 10, Miss Jones, I'll hook you up with that free peeler that you want. 2 more names, you get a $42 Cutco peeler you'll have forever. I mean, I think that's worth it. I don't know about you, but if you can just find 2 more people, I'll hook you up. I'll put that on your order. Jeff always talks about the 80-20. You want to save, or I don't remember exactly what the ratio is, Jeff, but you want to save some of your bonus points to give away for free to get some extra referrals, or to get them to call those referrals and book some appointments, or to get them to send out a text and give those customers a heads up. Free stuff is awesome. Qualifying. So once you have the list, making sure you find out good information about those customers. What's something fun, interesting, different about Susie? Who on this list likes to cook, likes to entertain, could buy everything if they wanted to? And the one that has 2 stars by it, the most important question you can ask to qualify your leads. Miss Jones, if you were me, who would you see first? This is how you identify the best prospects on your list. You can ask, because there's a billion different questions you can ask that'll give you a bunch of different information, but the truth is, you want to know who are the best people on the list. And you can't ask, Miss Jones, who are the friends that are going to buy the most, or who are your wealthiest friends? But if you just ask, because sometimes the wealthiest friends, again, are not the best customers, right? So Miss Jones, if you were me, if you were in my shoes, who would you see first? Let's star those people. And I'll star those top 3 to 5 people on the list. And then I'm going to really dive in on those 3 to 5 people and try to learn as much about them as I can before I qualify the rest of the list. So making sure they're qualified. This is a rec list that is poorly qualified. It has no information. This adds very, very, very little, very, very little to your business. These are basically just cold calls. You can't connect. You know nothing about these people or how they're related to the customer. Your lead list should look something more like this. All right, a mess with a bunch of notes on it. And, sure, some people have better handwriting than others, but I'll take this list and I qualify. I write down anything I need to know about those people. So I have things like an actor moving to LA, owns 3 dogs and 3 kittens. Sarah, her husband's name is Craig, who's an artist. I have on here, people's careers, what they enjoy to do for a living, the kind of cooking they like to do, questions that I can use to connect with that customer on the phone up front. Think about the difference when you're making a phone call. If you have, when you're making a phone call, think about when you have no information on that customer and you're just cold calling with the list versus when you know who that person is that you're calling. Think about the difference between the calls you made your first weekend from training, right, with customers that you actually knew and could connect with versus calls you might be making to referrals right now where you're struggling to make that connection. Imagine if all your calls could sound something like this. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Kathy, this is Taylor Max. I don't know if my name rings a bell. I'm Susie's friend, Susie from church. Yeah, she sent you a text about me. Oh, yeah, how are you, Taylor? Good, good. How are you? Good, good. Hey, I was over at Susie's house the other day, and your name came up. She said that you make the best apple pie in the world. Is that true? How is someone going to respond to that on the phone as the first question? Like, well, I don't know if that's the best apple pie in the world, but yeah, I'm pretty good at it, right? It fills them up. It makes them smile. It makes them feel warm. I don't know who this kid is, but he's kind of nice, and he knows what he's doing. He's flattering me. Well, I'm going to listen to what he has to say. And that initial contact, being able to bring up rapport early on in the conversation it's huge. Knowing how that person was connected to your customer and understanding the relationship between them and being able to use that to book the appointment is really key. It is a big part of recommendations. It's just being able to connect with your customers and share those stories like that. So a couple things I'm going to go through, just some of the things I have written down on some of these rec lists.